I am Abigail Stevens, 32 years old, and my life changed forever when my father left a voicemail saying, "You are out of the family business." After 7 years of dedication, countless 80-hour weeks, and 3 postponed vacations, I just replied with one word: understood. What my parents never realized was that I had been documenting everything for years. The evidence I had gathered was about to change all our lives forever. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit subscribe if you want more stories about standing up for yourself, and get comfortable because this is going to be quite a ride. Stevens Family Enterprises was the pride of our community in Portland. My grandfather Harold started it as a single hardware store in 1978, and through determination and customer service excellence, expanded it into a successful regional retail chain with 27 locations across 3 states. Growing up, I lived and breathed the family business. Sunday dinners inevitably turned into strategy sessions. Summer vacations included store visits. My brother Gregory and I spent weekends stocking shelves and learning the register while other kids were at the mall. My father Walter took over when Grandpa Harold turned 65. Under his leadership, the company continued to expand, though at a slower pace. My mother Martha, always supportive but passive, worked in human resources. The business was our entire identity, our legacy, our future. There was never any question that Gregory and I would join the company someday. I went to college for finance and business management, determined to bring fresh perspectives to our traditional business model. After graduation, I spent 3 years at a major retail consulting firm in Chicago, gaining valuable outside experience. When I returned at 25 to join the family business, I was bursting with innovative ideas and modern strategies I had learned from industry leaders. My father welcomed me back with a position as assistant purchasing manager, several levels below what my qualifications warranted. I accepted without complaint, assuming I would need to prove myself within the family context. Gregory, 2 years. My senior, despite his mediocre business degree and no outside experience, was already director of operations, reporting directly to our father. The disparity was obvious, but I was determined to earn my advancement through merit and results. The first year, I increased purchasing efficiency by 14%, and negotiated supplier contracts that saved the company over $300,000. My reward was a modest promotion to purchasing manager, still reporting to Gregory, who had been elevated to vice president. My father ran Stevens Family Enterprises with an iron fist. Decision-making was centralized, with my father having the final say on virtually everything. Staff meetings felt like monarchy court sessions rather than collaborative business discussions. Suggestions were welcomed only if they aligned with Walter Stevens' existing viewpoint. Disagreement was viewed as disloyalty. As I observed our competitors evolving with e-commerce integration, supply chain modernization, and data-driven inventory management, I grew increasingly concerned. Our sales had plateaued, then began a gradual decline. Our once loyal customer base was aging, and younger consumers were choosing more modern retailers. Our technology systems were outdated, our marketing practically non-existent beyond newspaper ads and occasional radio spots. I prepared detailed presentations on industry trends, complete with implementation plans and financial projections. Each one was met with the same response from my father: "This is not how we do things at Stevens." My mother would squeeze my hand sympathetically under the table, but never contradicted him publicly. Gregory actively undermined my suggestions, playing to our father's traditional sensibilities. Despite this, I loved our business and believed in its potential. Our employees, many who had been with us for decades, were like extended family. The communities we served depended on our stores. I was determined to help steer the company toward necessary changes before it was too late. By my 5th year, I had managed to implement some smaller modernization projects by framing them as cost-saving measures rather than innovations. We updated our inventory system, though not to the cloud-based solution I had originally proposed. We refreshed our store layouts, though not with the comprehensive rebranding I had recommended. Small victories that kept me going. Our company culture remained stifling. Employees with great ideas learned to stay quiet. Regional managers stopped reporting problems to avoid my father's wrath. Gregory developed a reputation for taking credit for others' work while deflecting blame for failures. And through it all, our market position continued its slow decline as more agile competitors ate into our customer base. By the beginning of my 7th year, Stevens Family Enterprises was at a critical juncture. Profits had decreased by 18% over 3 years. 2 underperforming locations had been closed. Employee turnover, once practically non-existent, had reached 26% annually. We needed dramatic change, but my father remained convinced that doubling down on traditional methods would eventually turn things around. What kept me going was my grandfather. Though retired, Harold Stevens still took an interest in the business. During our monthly lunches, he would listen to my ideas with genuine curiosity. "Your father was innovative once too," he would tell me. "Give him time. The business is his whole identity." So I stayed patient, hoping for the opportunity to prove the value of my perspective. That opportunity would come sooner than I expected, though not in the way I had hoped. The email from ValueMart arrived on a Tuesday morning in April. ValueMart, the fastest-growing national retail chain in the country, was seeking regional partners for their new hybrid marketplace model. They wanted established local retailers to operate specialized departments within their superstores, combining national reach with local expertise. For a company like ours, it was a lifeline in a rapidly changing retail landscape, a chance to reach new customers while maintaining our brand identity. The request for proposal gave interested partners just 60 days to submit comprehensive business plans. As purchasing manager, the email had come to me, and I immediately recognized its significance. I forwarded it to my father, Gregory, and our executive team with a note emphasizing the opportunity. My father's response was lukewarm, but he agreed to discuss it at our next executive meeting. That evening, while reviewing quarterly reports, I noticed several discrepancies in our financial statements. Inventory numbers did not match purchasing records. Certain vendor payments seemed excessive compared to our order volumes. Most concerning cash flow projections showed unexpected shortfalls despite recent cost-cutting measures. These inconsistencies all traced back to departments under Gregory direct supervision. I spent the next week quietly investigating, comparing documents, and tracking patterns. What I found was alarming systematic accounting errors that masked declining performance in Gregory divisions. Whether through incompetence or deliberate manipulation, my brother was presenting a distorted picture of his areas of responsibility. I debated how to proceed. Taking my concerns directly to my father risked being accused of sibling rivalry. Going to our external accountants would create a family crisis. I decided to approach Gregory privately, first giving him the chance to address the issues before they grew worse. I invited him to lunch at a restaurant away from the office, thinking a neutral setting might help facilitate a productive conversation. I carefully presented my findings, framing them as concerning discrepancies rather than accusations. "These numbers do not add up," I explained, showing him the spreadsheets I had prepared. "If we do not correct these before the quarterly board meeting, we could be in serious trouble." His reaction caught me off guard. Rather than concern, he displayed immediate hostility. "So you have been spying on my departments," he snapped. "Looking for ways to make me look bad to Dad." "This is not about making anyone look bad," I insisted. "These are significant financial inconsistencies that affect the whole company." "You have always been jealous that Dad trusts me more," he said, gathering his things to leave. "If you take this any further, you will regret it." That evening, I received a call from my father. Gregory had told him I was creating problems and undermining company morale by questioning his accounting. Rather than asking for my perspective, my father reprimanded me for not being a team player. Frustrated but undeterred, I decided to shift focus to the ValueMart proposal, hoping success there might give me the credibility to address the accounting issues later. I threw myself into research, working nights and weekends, to craft a comprehensive partnership plan. I consulted industry contacts, analyzed market data, and developed financial projections. The resulting 80-page proposal outlined a visionary but practical approach to the partnership, including detailed implementation timelines and resource allocations. 2 weeks later, I presented a summary at our executive meeting. I had barely begun when my father interrupted. "Gregory has already been working on this," he announced. "He will take the lead on the ValueMart opportunity." I was stunned, but "I have already completed most of the proposal," I objected. "Gregory will use whatever parts of your work he finds valuable," my father replied dismissively. "As VP of Operations, this falls under his purview." I looked to my mother, who avoided my gaze. The other executives studied their notepads, unwilling to challenge the clear favoritism. After the meeting, I confronted Gregory in his office. "You knew I was working on the ValueMart proposal. Why did you go behind my back to Dad?" He leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Because I could. Face it, Abby. You will always be just a supporting player here. Dad will never see you as leadership material." "This is not about me," I insisted. "This partnership could determine the future of our company, and you have not even addressed the accounting discrepancies I found." "There are no discrepancies," he said coldly. "Just your misinterpretation of complex business operations you do not fully understand." That evening, my parents invited me to dinner. I hoped it might be a chance to have a reasonable discussion, but it quickly became clear they had orchestrated it to pressure me into backing down. "Your brother has been groomed to take over this company since he was a boy," my father stated between bites of steak. "Your role is to support him, not create division." "What about competence? What about merit?" I asked. "The company is struggling because we refuse to adapt." "The company is struggling because of the economy, online shopping, changing consumer habits," my father countered. "Not because of our leadership. And questioning your brother accounting is completely unacceptable," my mother added, finally breaking her silence. "Family loyalty should come before everything else." "Should loyalty to family mean ignoring potential financial misconduct?" I asked quietly. My father slammed his hand on the table, rattling the dishes. "That is enough. You either fall in line, or you need to reconsider your place in this company." The threat hung in the air between us. For the first time, I seriously considered walking away from Stephen's family enterprises. But generations of my family had built this business. Our employees deserved better leadership. And deep down, I still believed I could make a difference. Little did I know the real breaking point was just days away. The conference room had been meticulously prepared for the ValueMart executive's visit. Fresh flowers adorned the table, catering had delivered a spread of pastries and coffee, and our company logo was prominently displayed on a new digital backdrop. 4 representatives from ValueMart had flown in specifically to discuss partnership possibilities, a clear indication of their serious interest. My father had insisted that Gregory lead the presentation, despite my having done most of the preparation work. I sat quietly at the side of the table binder of supporting materials, ready, hoping to at least contribute to the discussion portion. My mother supervised the refreshments, more comfortable in a hosting role than a business one. The problems began almost immediately. Gregory had clearly only skimmed my proposal, stumbling over key details and presenting outdated company figures. When ValueMart Chief Development Officer asked about our e-commerce integration plans, a significant section of my proposal, Gregory gave vague assurances with no specific strategy. "Perhaps Abigail could address that question," suggested David Mercer, the ValueMart executive I had briefly corresponded with during my research. "I believe she developed the digital strategy components." Before I could speak, my father interjected. Gregory is handling all aspects of this potential partnership. Abigail is here in a supporting capacity only. I watched the Value Mart team exchange glances. Their enthusiasm visibly cooled as Gregory continued to fumble through financial projections that contradicted the written materials they had been provided. When the discussion turned to inventory management systems, I could no longer remain silent. The misinformation could cost us the partnership. If I may, I said, addressing the Value Mart team directly, our current system can actually be integrated with your platform through API connections, as outlined on page 43 of the proposal. We have already consulted with our IT vendor to confirm compatibility. The executives nodded appreciatively, making notes. Gregory glared at me while my father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. For the remainder of the meeting, I carefully interjected clarifications when Gregory presented incorrect information, always deferential but determined to salvage the opportunity. By the end, the Value Mart team was directing most of their questions to me despite my peripheral seating position. As they departed, David Mercer handed me his business card. I have some follow-up questions about the implementation timeline. Perhaps we could discuss directly. My father quickly intercepted, taking the card from my hand. All communications should go through our main office. We appreciate your time today. The moment the visitors left our building, my father erupted. How dare you undermine your brother like that, he shouted, face flushed with anger. You made him look completely unprepared. He was unprepared, I replied evenly. He presented incorrect information that could have cost us this partnership. I worked incredibly hard on this, Gregory protested, though we all knew it was untrue. My mother attempted to diffuse the tension. Let us all calm down. I am sure Abigail did not mean to overstep. This is not about overstepping, I insisted. This is about 300 employees whose livelihoods depend on this company adapting to survive. Value Mart could help us reach new customers and modernize our operations. My father dismissed everyone else from the conference room, leaving just the two of us. His voice was dangerously quiet when he spoke again. You have always thought you know better than everyone else. Your fancy degree and consulting experience do not give you the right to disrespect this family. This is not about disrespect, I countered. This is about competence. Gregory financial reports have serious discrepancies that need to be addressed. Not this again, he exploded. Your brother has given everything to this company. Then let us do an external audit, I suggested. If everything is fine, I will apologize and never bring it up again. The suggestion sent him into a rage. You want to bring outsiders in to investigate your own family? Absolutely not. This conversation is over. Dad, please. The company is in trouble. Sales are down 18%. 2 stores have closed. Employee turnover is at an all-time high. We need to face reality. The reality is that you either drop this now or there will be consequences, he said, jabbing his finger toward me. I will not have you creating chaos in this company because you are jealous of your brother's position. In that moment, something broke inside me. 7 years of diminishment of watching the company I loved, slowly decline of having my expertise ignored, crystallized into perfect clarity. This is not about jealousy, I said quietly. This is about the future of Stephen's family enterprises. But if you will not listen, I cannot make you. I gathered my materials and walked out, leaving my father staring after me. For the first time, I felt no guilt, no need to placate or persuade. The truth had become undeniable. Nothing would change as long as the current leadership remained in place. That evening, as I drove home, my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. I pulled into my driveway and played the message on my car speakers. Abigail, this is your father. His voice was cold, formal. After today's display of disloyalty, I have made a decision. You are out of the family business effective immediately. Your access credentials have been deactivated. Harold Stevens built this company on family loyalty, something you clearly lack. Do not come to the office tomorrow. Human Resources will send your final paperwork. I sat in shocked silence, replaying the message 3 times. 7 years of my professional life, generations of family legacy dismissed in a 30-second voicemail. Not even the courtesy of a face-to-face conversation. After the initial shock wore off, I felt an unexpected sense of calm. The decision had been made for me. Now I needed to decide what came next. I took out my phone and typed a single-word response to my father's message. Understood. The moment I sent that one-word text, understood, something shifted inside me. No pleading, no emotional outburst, no lengthy justification, just acknowledgement. In the silence of my car, I realized I had spent years trying to earn respect from people who were fundamentally incapable of giving it. The simplicity of my response felt powerful in a way that arguments never had. I walked into my apartment and poured a glass of wine, allowing myself a moment to process what had just happened. I had been fired from my family business via voicemail. My father had not even had the courage to tell me directly. 7 years of dedication ended with the corporate equivalent of a breakup text. Surprisingly, beneath the hurt and anger, I felt a growing sense of clarity. For the first time since joining Stephen's family enterprises, I could act without concern for family politics or emotional manipulation. I was free to do what was right, rather than what was expected. I opened my laptop and began downloading every file I legally had access to through my company account. As purchasing manager, I had legitimate access to vendor contracts, inventory reports, financial summaries, and interdepartmental communications. I worked methodically, organizing everything into clearly labeled folders before my credentials would be deactivated. Around midnight, I discovered something unexpected while reviewing supply chain documentation. Several large payments had been authorized to a vendor called Meridian Supplies, a company I had never worked with despite overseeing most vendor relationships. Further investigation revealed Meridian had been created just 18 months earlier, had no website or industry presence, and used a post office box as its business address. The pieces suddenly connected: the accounting discrepancies, the unexplained inventory shrinkage, Gregory defensiveness. Meridian Supplies had all the hallmarks of a shell company, possibly being used to siphon funds from Stephen's family enterprises. I called Jessica Morgan, my attorney friend from college, despite the late hour. I need legal advice, I told her when she answered groggily. Professional, not personal. Over the next hour, I explained the situation, from my firing to the potential financial misconduct I had discovered. Jessica listened carefully, asking occasional, clarifying questions. Based on what you have told me, you have several options, she said when I finished. But first, I need to be clear: do not access any company systems now that you have been terminated. That could constitute computer fraud. Only use the data you legally downloaded while still employed. Understood, I said, the word now taking on new significance. Second, documenting financial irregularities is protected whistleblower activity, but you need to proceed carefully. Your family connection complicates things. We discussed various approaches, from formal whistleblowing to simply walking away. By the time we hung up, I had a clear strategy. I would compile everything into a comprehensive report, reach out to ValueMart independently, and give my family one chance to address the issues internally before taking further action. I worked through the night, fueled by determination and coffee. By morning, I had created a detailed analysis of Gregory financial mismanagement, including the suspicious Meridian Supplies transactions. I also refined the ValueMart proposal, highlighting how it could revitalize the company with proper leadership. I had just finished when my phone began ringing. My father. I declined the call. Then my mother. Declined. Gregory. Declined. Then texts started flooding in. You need to return company property immediately. From my father. We should talk about this rationally. From my mother. You are making a huge mistake. from Gregory. I silenced my phone and took a shower, then made breakfast, deliberately taking time for myself before deciding how to proceed. When I checked my phone again, I had 17 missed calls. I scrolled through the voicemails, most variations, on demands to return company files and threats of legal action if I failed to comply. Only my mother messages showed any concern for my well-being, though even those focused primarily on fixing the situation and making things right with your father. I sent one text to David Mercer at Value Mart. I am no longer with Stevens Family Enterprises, but would value the opportunity to discuss the partnership proposal. Are you available for coffee tomorrow? His response came quickly. I heard rumors of a shakeup. Very interested in speaking with you. Name the place and time. By afternoon, my family escalation had become almost comical. Calls came every 15 minutes. Emails threatened everything from legal action to personal disownment. My father even had the company attorney call me directly, though I let that go to voicemail as well. I spent the day refining my report and preparing for various contingencies. Jessica had arranged for a secure cloud storage location where I uploaded backup copies of all documentation. I also scheduled meetings with 2 retail industry contacts who might provide perspective on my situation. That evening, I finally responded to my mother increasingly frantic texts with a simple message: I am fine. I need space to think. Please respect that. Her reply was immediate. Your father is furious about company files, says you took confidential information. The whole office is in chaos. I did not respond. Let them wonder. Let them worry. For once, I would not rush to smooth things over or make others comfortable at my own expense. By the next morning, I had 36 missed calls. By afternoon, 52. By the evening of the second day after my termination, the count had reached 72 missed calls from various family members, company executives, and even family friends enlisted to talk sense into me. I met with David Mercer from Value Mart at a quiet cafe across town. Without disparaging my family, I explained that Stevens Family Enterprises was undergoing leadership changes and that I had been the primary architect of the partnership proposal. To be frank, David said after I finished my pitch, we were impressed with the proposal but concerned about the current leadership execution capabilities. Your intervention during the meeting saved it from being a complete disaster. The company has tremendous potential with the right direction, I replied. The Value Mart partnership could be transformative for both organizations. And where do you see yourself in this potential future partnership? He asked directly. That remains to be determined, I answered honestly. But I remain committed to seeing Stevens Family Enterprises succeed even if my role changes. He nodded thoughtfully. Value Mart is still very interested, but we need assurances about operational competence and financial stability. The partnership is too important to entrust to what appeared to be unprepared leadership. I left with a tentative follow-up meeting scheduled, and David assurance that Value Mart would delay any decisions until the situation clarified. That night, I made 2 significant decisions. First, I would visit my grandfather Harold the next day. As the company founder, he deserved to know what was happening. Second, I would file an anonymous report with the State Financial Oversight Board regarding the suspicious Meridian Supplies transactions. If my family would not address the potential misconduct internally, external accountability became necessary. As I prepared for bed, my phone lit up with yet another call from my father. For the first time in 2 days, I answered. You have ignored 72 calls, he began without greeting. What do you think you are doing? Taking time to consider my options, I replied calmly. Something I should have done years ago. You have no options, he snapped. You return any company information in your possession immediately or we press charges. I have not taken anything I was not authorized to access as part of my job, I said. But I have documented everything I found, including Gregory Creative Accounting and the mysterious Meridian Supplies. The silence on the other end told me all I needed to know. "You do not know what you are talking about," he finally said, his voice less certain. "I think I do. And so will the state financial investigators if it comes to that." "You would betray your own family?" he asked incredulously. "No, Dad. I am trying to save the company you claim to love so much. The question is whether you will let your pride destroy everything Grandpa built." I ended the call before he could respond. For the first time in our relationship, I had set the terms of engagement. The next move was his. The pounding on my apartment door came at 7:30 the next morning. Through the peephole, I could see my father, mother, and Gregory standing in the hallway. My father's expression was thunderous. My mother appeared distressed, and Gregory looked distinctly uncomfortable. I took a deep breath, straightened my posture, and opened the door. "This ends now," my father announced, attempting to push past me into the apartment. I stood my ground. "You are welcome to come in if you can be civil. Otherwise, this conversation happens in the hallway or not at all." My mother placed a restraining hand on my father's arm. "Please, Walter. Let us talk reasonably." I stepped aside, allowing them to enter. My apartment was immaculate, with my laptop closed on the dining table beside a neatly organized folder. I had prepared for this confrontation right down to the coffee already brewed and cups set out. "Would anyone like coffee?" I asked, as if this were a normal family visit. "Stop playing games, Abigail," my father snapped. "We know you took company files. That is theft of proprietary information." I poured myself a cup of coffee, taking my time to respond. "I accessed information relevant to my position while I was still employed. Everything was within my authorization level. You are using it to undermine the company," Gregory accused. "You contacted ValueMart behind our backs." "Actually, David Mercer contacted me," I corrected him. "ValueMart was understandably concerned after your disastrous presentation." My mother stepped forward, attempting her usual role as peacemaker. "Honey, we know you are upset about being let go. Anyone would be. But this hostile approach is not like you." "You are right, Mom. It is not like me. I have spent years being accommodating, accepting less than I deserved, watching the company decline while trying to make changes from within the system." That approach failed. My father paced the small living room. "What exactly do you want, Money? A different position? Just tell us so we can end this nonsense." I sat down at my dining table, indicating they should join me. My mother and Gregory sat while my father remained standing. "What I want is accountability," I said clearly. "For 7 years, I have watched Gregory mismanage his departments while taking credit for others' work. I have documented systematic accounting irregularities that point to serious financial misconduct." "That is ridiculous," Gregory protested, though his face had paled. I opened the folder on the table, removing a stack of papers. "Meridian Supplies," I said, sliding the documents toward them. "A vendor that received over $2 million in payments last year for supplies that never appeared in our inventory. A company that shares a mailing address with your personal LLC, Gregory." My mother gasped. My father stopped pacing. "You created a fake vendor to embezzle from the family company," I continued. "The same company our grandfather built from nothing. The same company that employs 300 people who trust us." "This is a misunderstanding," Gregory stammered. "Meridian is a legitimate supplier for specialized components. Specialized components that never appeared in any inventory records, that no other manager ever ordered or received, that somehow cost exactly 12% more than market rate for similar items." I shook my head. "The state financial investigators will not see that as a misunderstanding." My father finally sat down his anger, giving way to something approaching fear. "You reported this to authorities?" "Not yet," I replied. "Despite everything, I wanted to give you one chance to address this internally." By blackmailing your own family, my father demanded some of his bluster returning. By offering a solution that preserves the company while holding people accountable, I corrected. Stevens Family Enterprises needs restructuring, transparent financial practices, and leadership change. Otherwise, it will not survive another 5 years, let alone another generation. My mother, always quick to smooth over conflict, reached for my hand. Surely we can work this out without dramatic changes. We are family. I gently withdrew my hand from hers. Being family should mean higher standards, not immunity from consequences. For years you have enabled Dad and Gregory behavior, Mom. Your silence has been as damaging as their actions. Her eyes filled with tears, but I pressed on. I have 2 options for you to consider. First, we restructure the company with external oversight, proper corporate governance, and merit-based leadership. Gregory repays what he took, and we implement financial controls to prevent future misconduct. And the second option, my father asked, his voice subdued. I submit my documentation to state authorities, the board of directors, and Value Mart. The resulting investigation will likely lead to criminal charges, the board removing current leadership, and the company value plummeting before any partnership can save it. Gregory exploded from his chair. You would destroy the family business just because Dad fired you. No, Gregory. You and Dad have been destroying it for years. I am offering a path to save it. My father stood abruptly. This is preposterous. You have no authority to make these demands. The board will never support you over me. Perhaps not, I acknowledged. But they will listen to Grandpa Harold. I am meeting with him this afternoon. My father's face registered genuine shock. My father has been retired for 15 years. He has no say in company operations. He still owns 20% of the company shares and is respected by every board member. More importantly, he deserves to know what is happening to his legacy. My mother began openly crying now. Please, Abigail, think about what this will do to our family. I have thought about little else for the past 3 days, I replied softly. The question is whether this family values truth and integrity or power and appearances. My father took my mother's arm. This conversation is over. You have until tomorrow to return any company information and cease this ridiculous crusade. After that, we take legal action. As they moved toward the door, I remained seated. 72 missed calls. And this is the best you could do, threats instead of accountability. My father turned back, his expression cold. You have until tomorrow to come to your senses. After they left, I sat quietly processing the confrontation. It had gone largely as expected. Denial, then anger, then threats, with no real engagement with the substance of my concerns. Yet I had seen something beneath my father bluster fear. For perhaps the first time he recognized that he was not in complete control of the situation. I picked up my phone and called my grandfather. Grandpa, it is Abigail. We need to talk about the company. Can I come visit you today? His warm, slightly confused response confirmed our meeting. As I gathered my documentation to share with him, I felt both dread and determination. The confrontation with my parents and brother had been difficult, but I suspected the coming conversation with my grandfather might be even harder. Telling the company founder that his son and grandson were destroying his legacy would bring no joy. Yet it was necessary. Stevens Family Enterprises could still be saved, but only through difficult truths and decisive action. With renewed resolve, I prepared to meet the man who had started it all, hoping he would understand what needed to be done. Grandpa Harold lived in a comfortable retirement community 30 minutes outside the city. His condo, meticulously organized and decorated with company memorabilia, reflected the methodical mind that had built Stevens Family Enterprises from nothing. At 83, he remained sharp and engaged, though he had fully retired from company operations 15 years earlier. He greeted me with a warm hug. Abigail, what a wonderful surprise. Your grandmother would have made her famous cookies if she knew you were coming. Grandma Rose had passed 3 years earlier, but he still spoke of her in the present tense occasionally. We settled in his sunroom, overlooking a small lake. I had rehearsed this conversation multiple times, but still struggled to begin. "Grandpa, I need to talk to you about the company," I finally said. "There are serious problems that Dad and Gregory are not addressing." He studied me carefully. I suspected as much. Sales reports have been disappointing for several quarters, and the annual shareholder meeting last month felt strained. I was surprised by his awareness. "You still follow the company performance." He smiled gently. "I may be retired, but that business was my life for 40 years. Of course I pay attention." He leaned forward. "Tell me everything, Abigail." For the next hour, I detailed the company declining performance, the resistance to modernization, and finally the evidence of Gregory financial misconduct. I explained my termination and the subsequent confrontation with my family. Throughout, my grandfather listened intently, asking occasional clarifying questions but otherwise remaining silent. When I finished, he was quiet for several minutes, gazing out at the lake. Finally, he turned back to me. "Did I ever tell you about the fight your father and I had when he took over as CEO?" he asked. "No," I replied, surprised. In family lore, the succession had been portrayed as seamless. Walter wanted immediate control of everything. No oversight, no transition period, no accountability to me or the board I had established. He sighed heavily. I thought giving him what he wanted would help him grow into the role. Instead, it reinforced his worst tendencies. "What happened?" I asked. We argued bitterly. He threatened to leave the company if I did not step completely aside. "Your grandmother convinced me to prioritize family harmony." His eyes grew distant. Within a year, he had removed 3 of my most trusted executives and disbanded the advisory board. I told myself he needed to make the company his own. The parallel to my own situation was striking. "Why did you never tell me this?" "Pride, I suppose, and hope that things would improve." He reached for a folder on the side table, but I have not been entirely passive. Inside the folder were financial analyses, market comparisons, and performance trends for Stevens family enterprises over the past decade. The decline was clearly documented with red flags highlighted on particularly troubling metrics. "My financial advisor helps me track the real numbers," he explained, "not the selectively edited reports Walter provides at family gatherings." "And the Meridian Supplies situation?" I asked. "Did you know about that?" He shook his head sadly. "Not specifically, but I suspected something similar. The profit margins have been inconsistent with inventory turnover rates for at least 2 years." I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Relief that my grandfather understood the severity of the situation, sadness that he had been watching the decline of his life, work from the sidelines, and anger that my father had marginalized him, just as he had marginalized me. "What do you think we should do?" I asked. Grandpa Harold straightened in his chair, something of the business leader he had once been emerging in his posture. "The company needs new leadership and transparent financial practices. And I believe you should be part of that leadership, Abigail." "Dad would never accept that," I pointed out. "Perhaps not willingly." He reached for my hand. "But he is not the only Stevens with power in this situation." Together we developed a strategy. Grandpa Harold would call an emergency board meeting, exercising his right as a significant shareholder. He would present his concerns alongside my documentation. With the ValueMart partnership hanging in the balance and evidence of financial misconduct, we believed the board would have no choice but to act decisively. As I prepared to leave, my grandfather hugged me tightly. "You remind me of myself at your age, principled, determined, with a clear vision of what could be." He stepped back, eyes bright with unshed tears. "I should have been more involved, should have spoken up sooner." "It is not too late," I assured him. "We can still save the company." "Not just the company," he replied. "Perhaps the family too, though. That may be harder." I drove directly from my grandfather to meet with David Mercer from ValueMart, Over coffee, I candidly explained the situation. Stevens Family Enterprises is undergoing significant leadership changes, I told him. My grandfather, the company founder, is stepping back in temporarily to oversee a transition. David seemed intrigued rather than concerned. Frankly, this increases our interest. The proposal was excellent, but the execution capabilities of the leadership we met with were concerning. If the restructuring proceeds as planned, would ValueMart still consider the partnership, I asked. More than consider it, he replied. With the right leadership in place, we would be eager to move forward aggressively. I left with a tentative agreement ValueMart would delay any final decisions for 2 weeks, giving us time to resolve the internal situation. If the company emerged with stable, competent leadership, the partnership would proceed with enhanced terms. That evening, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Stevens Family Enterprises stock had dropped 12% on rumors of internal management disputes. The financial markets had caught wind of the situation, though the details remained private for now. Minutes later, my father called. For the first time in days, I answered. "What have you done?" he demanded, his voice raw with anger. "The stock is plummeting. Board members are calling me with questions I cannot answer." "I have done nothing publicly," I replied truthfully. "But Grandpa Harold has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. I suggest you prepare." My father called the meeting. He asked, genuine shock in his voice. Why would he involve himself after all these years? Because he cares about the company legacy, as do I. There was a long pause before my father spoke again, his voice suddenly tired rather than angry. "Abigail, please. Whatever you and my father are planning, reconsider. This company is my life's work." The vulnerability in his tone almost swayed me. Almost. It was Grandpa's life's work first, and it should continue to be our family's legacy. That is precisely why changes are necessary. "What changes?" he asked warily. "Come to the meeting tomorrow, prepared to listen, not just defend." That would be a good start. After ending the call, I spent the evening reviewing my presentation for the board one final time. Everything hinged on the next day's meeting. If the board sided with my father, I would have no choice but to proceed with external whistleblowing. If they recognized the necessity for change, the company might not only survive but thrive again. Just after midnight, I received a text from my mother. "Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that we love you. Family is forever, businesses are not." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "I love you too. That is why I cannot remain silent." Sleep came fitfully that night, my mind cycling through scenarios and rehearsing arguments. By morning, I felt clarity amidst the anxiety. Today would determine not just my future, but the future of Stevens Family Enterprises and everyone who depended on it. As I dressed for the board meeting, I chose a professional navy suit rather than the black one I had initially selected. This was not a funeral for the company, but potentially a rebirth. I wanted my appearance to reflect that hope. The stage was set for a showdown that would change everything. The turning point had arrived. The Stevens Family Enterprises headquarters lobby felt different as I walked through it that morning. Employees whispered in corners, conversations halting as I passed. News of the emergency board meeting had clearly spread, though the exact purpose remained confidential. Several longtime staff members nodded respectfully or offered small smiles of encouragement. They might not know the details, but they sensed change was coming. The boardroom was tense when I arrived. 8 board members sat around the large mahogany table with my father at the head. My mother and Gregory sat to his right. Empty chairs waited for me and my grandfather. David Mercer from ValueMart stood near the window, invited as an observer given the partnership stakes. My father looked haggard with dark circles under his eyes, suggesting a sleepless night. Gregory appeared nervous, repeatedly straightening papers before him. Only my mother maintained her usual composed facade, though her knuckles were white where she gripped her water glass. Before anyone could speak, the boardroom door opened again, and my grandfather entered. The effect was immediate. Board members who had been slouching sat straighter. My father's expression tightened. Harold Stevens might be 15 years retired, but his presence still commanded respect. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. My grandfather began taking a seat near the middle of the table rather than challenging my father's position at the head. I have called this meeting because Stevens Family Enterprises stands at a critical juncture. The decisions made today will determine whether my life's work continues to thrive or fades into irrelevance. My father attempted to take control. Dad, while we appreciate your concern, the current management team has a clear strategy for addressing recent challenges. Recent challenges, my grandfather repeated. Walter, the company has been in decline for 5 years. Profit margins have decreased by 23%. Market share has fallen from regional dominance to third place. Employee retention is at historic lows. He distributed folders containing the analyses we had prepared. These are not opinions or exaggerations. These are facts documented by the company-owned financial statements and market analyses. The board members flipped through the materials with growing concern evident on their faces. Patricia Jenkins, the longest-serving board member, spoke first. These trends are more severe than what has been presented in quarterly meetings, she observed. Why the discrepancy? My father glared at me before responding. Different analytical approaches can yield different interpretations. The materials before you take an unnecessarily alarmist view. Actually, I interjected these materials use standard industry metrics applied consistently. They simply have not been cherry-picked to present an artificially positive picture. Gregory jumped in defensively. The retail landscape is challenging for everyone. Online competition, changing consumer habits. Which is precisely why adaptation is essential, I countered. Yet every modernization proposal has been rejected. My grandfather redirected the conversation. The performance issues alone would warrant leadership changes, but there is a more serious matter to address. He nodded to me. Taking a deep breath, I opened my laptop and connected it to the room display. In my capacity as purchasing manager, I discovered concerning financial irregularities centered around a vendor called Meridian Supplies. Over the next 20 minutes, I methodically presented the evidence of Gregory embezzlement scheme. The boardroom grew increasingly still as the magnitude of the financial misconduct became clear. When I finished, the silence was deafening. Gregory broke first. This is a vindictive misrepresentation. Abigail is angry about being fired and trying to damage the company out of spite. Patricia Jenkins fixed him with a stern look. Are you denying that Meridian Supplies shares an address with your personal LLC? That is a coincidence, he stammered unconvincingly. My father, seeing the board members exchanged glances, attempted damage control. If there have been accounting oversights, we will certainly address them. But this does not require dramatic structural changes. With respect, Walter, my grandfather said quietly, this goes beyond oversights. This represents a fundamental failure of leadership and oversight. James Rodriguez, another senior board member, turned to David Mercer. Mr. Mercer, given what you have heard today, what is ValueMart's position regarding our potential partnership? David stepped forward. ValueMart remains very interested in partnering with Stevens Family Enterprises. However, we require stable, transparent leadership and financial practices. Based on what I have witnessed, significant changes would be necessary before we could proceed. My father's final defense crumbled as the board began actively discussing leadership alternatives. After a brief private consultation, Patricia Jenkins addressed the room. The board will need to deliberate on appropriate actions. However, given the seriousness of the financial misconduct allegations, we propose an immediate leadership change while an independent audit is conducted. A formal vote followed. 7 of 8 board members supported a motion of no confidence in the current executive leadership. My father and Gregory were placed on administrative leave pending the audit results. I was appointed interim CEO, with my grandfather serving as special advisor during the transition. My mother sat silently throughout the vote, her expression unreadable. When the meeting adjourned, she approached me. "I hope you know what you are doing," she said softly. "Your father has dedicated his life to this company." "I know, Mom. This is not about punishing Dad. It is about saving the company and its employees." "And your brother? What happens to him?" "That depends on the audit findings and whether he makes restitution," I replied honestly. "But he made his choices knowing the potential consequences." She nodded sadly and left to join my father, who had exited without speaking to me. Gregory had disappeared immediately after the vote. The following weeks were among the most challenging and rewarding of my life. The independent audit confirmed Gregory's financial misconduct, identifying approximately $2.4 million diverted through Meridian supplies and other fraudulent mechanisms. He ultimately avoided criminal charges by agreeing to full restitution and resigning permanently from the company. My father's situation was more complex. While the audit found no evidence he had participated in or known about the embezzlement, it documented numerous instances of mismanagement and governance failures. After lengthy discussions with the board, he agreed to retire as CEO, but retained a position on the board of directors. The company restructuring proceeded rapidly. We implemented modern inventory systems, expanded e-commerce capabilities, and developed a comprehensive digital marketing strategy. Employee morale improved as they witnessed positive changes and felt their input was finally valued. 3 months after the emergency board meeting, my grandfather and I met with ValueMart executives to finalize the partnership agreement. The terms were even more favorable than in the original proposal, with Stevens Family Enterprises positioned as a premium brand within select ValueMart locations and significant technology integration support provided. "You have accomplished an impressive turnaround in a short time," David Mercer commented after the contracts were signed. "Most family businesses would have imploded under similar circumstances." "We came close," I acknowledged. "But the company foundation was always strong. It just needed to adapt to changing times." Personal relationships healed more slowly than business operations. My mother gradually resumed regular contact, inviting me to lunch every few weeks. Our conversations remained careful at first, but eventually regained some warmth. 6 months into my tenure as CEO, my father requested a meeting. We sat in the same conference room where I had once been relegated to the sidelines during the ValueMart presentation. "The board seems pleased with your performance," he began awkwardly. "The company is growing again," I replied. Fourth quarter sales increased 15% year over year. He nodded, struggling with what to say next. I still believe I could have turned things around eventually, but I acknowledge that perhaps my timeline was too slow. Coming from my father, this was tantamount to a full apology. I accepted it as such. "The company needed different leadership for a different era," I said, "just as Grandpa recognized when he handed control to you." "He was more graceful about it than I was," my father admitted ruefully. "Different circumstances," I pointed out. "The company was not in crisis then." A hint of the old defensiveness returned to his expression. "And you believe I created that crisis?" "I believe we all played a part. You by resisting change, Gregory through his actions, me by not speaking up sooner, and even Mom by enabling dysfunction rather than addressing it." He considered this, then asked the question I had been waiting for. "Do you think there might be a role for me in the company future?" "Not as CEO, of course, but perhaps in some advisory capacity beyond the board seat." "I think that is possible," I replied carefully, "given time and certain conditions." For the first time in our professional relationship, we began a genuine dialogue about possibilities rather than ultimatums. It was a small step, but a significant one. Gregory's journey proved more difficult. The embezzlement scandal had damaged his reputation beyond repair in the business community. After repaying the stolen funds, he moved to another state to start over. Our relationship remained strained with only occasional text messages marking birthdays or holidays. The transformation of Stephen's family enterprises continued successfully. 1 year after the emergency board meeting, we opened our first concept store, integrating digital and physical shopping experiences. Sales increased 34% across all channels. Employee turnover dropped to just 7% annually. The Value Mart partnership expanded to additional locations. Through it all, my grandfather remained my most trusted advisor and supporter. His wisdom and perspective helped me navigate both the business challenges and the personal ones. The true measure of leadership, he told me during one of our regular strategy sessions, is not whether you avoid difficulties, but how you respond when they arrive. You faced the hardest challenge any leader can face, choosing integrity over comfort, truth over loyalty, and long-term success over short-term harmony. I lost my family in the process, I pointed out. Not lost, he corrected gently. Transformed. Relationships built on truth, even painful truth, are ultimately stronger than those built on comfortable illusions. As I reflect on the journey from that fateful voicemail to where we stand today, I recognize the profound lessons learned. Standing up for what is right rarely feels good in the moment. It is lonely, frightening, and filled with doubt, but integrity cannot be measured by immediate comfort. The simple word "understood" that I texted in response to being fired marked a turning point in my life. Not because it was clever or strategic, but because it represented a fundamental shift from seeking approval to accepting reality. From that moment of clarity came the strength to take necessary action regardless of the personal cost. Family businesses involve unique complexities where professional and personal identities intertwine. When dysfunction arises, addressing it requires extraordinary courage, precisely because the stakes extend beyond business success to the very relationships that define us. Yet those relationships can only truly thrive when built on mutual respect, shared values, and unflinching honesty. Stephen's family enterprises continues to grow and evolve. The path forward remains challenging but clear. And though the family wounds are still healing, they are healing with greater authenticity than ever before. Have you ever had to choose between uncomfortable truth and comfortable silence, between family loyalty and personal integrity? Share your experiences in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. And if you know someone struggling with similar challenges, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing we are not alone in our difficult choices makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, understanding your worth is the first step to standing your ground.